Hello and welcome to Vikings Therapy, your weekly Minnesota Vikings breakdown. This week we'll be covering the decisive win against the Lions, the present and future quarterback of the Vikings, our Viking Players of the Week, preview for the upcoming Ravens game, and what do the Vikings look like for the rest of the season. At the start of this game, the Lions came out, drove down the field, and scored a touchdown. I thought to myself, here we go again, typical Vikings game. But then Miles Price took the kickoff return back 61 yards that set up a great drive that ended with a passing touchdown from J.J. McCarthy to Justin Jefferson. So now we'll take a look at the Justin Jefferson touchdown catch. Again, Lions had just scored on their opening drive. They're up 7-0. Miles Price takes the kickoff back 61 yards, setting up a drive starting at the 36. Vikings had a good mix of run and pass on this drive, setting up this first and goal from the 10-yard line, and we'll take a look at it. So you can see here, guarding the tackle, we're talking a lot. Where's the blitz going to come from? What's 97 doing? Because Aiden Hutchinson is a game wrecker. So really communicating there. Great to see. This ball is snapped, and immediately McCarthy is looking for Justin Jefferson. Where's he at? What's he doing? He knows he has the advantage there. Best receiver in the league. He knows where he's going with the ball. And Justin Jefferson just makes a fantastic catch there. Starts at the one-handed catch, reels it in, drags both feet. Easy touchdown, game tied 7-7. So the next play we're going to look at is Blake Cashman's punch out. Setting us up third quarter. We've stopped him on first and second down. It's third and long. And you can see they're kind of just trying to get some cushion to punt this ball away. Blake Cashman is right here on the line, right in the thick of it. And it's a pitch out to David Montgomery. So again, you can see the Lions have some lead blockers out here. Good line blocking, or at least it looks like it. And Blake Cashman is still right here in the middle. And he just slips between the offensive line here and starts his hot pursuit. Again, Lions have great lead blockers here. This is probably going to be a first down, if not more. But Blake Cashman takes a great angle, catches up, and you can see his arm right here, ready for the peanut punch. Punches that ball out and tackles him, so he wouldn't have got the first down if he hadn't fumbled the ball. And you can see right here, Hitman is already looking at that ball. He was watching it the whole time, immediately sprints to it. Vikings get the ball inside the 40-yard line, another short field. This set up actually the third touchdown for the Vikings of the game, which was a J.J. McCarthy rushing touchdown. Gave them the 10-point padding and ended up probably winning them the game. So we'll see it from a different angle here. Pause it right here. This is near the end of the play. David Montgomery's, again, close to that first down yardage. He's seeing green in front of him. He may go for more. And out of nowhere, here comes Blake Cashman, punching that ball out and wrapping up for the tackle. Vikings come in, hop on the ball. Great recovery. Again, great pursuit by Blake Cashman. So nice to have him back and healthy. So now we'll take a look at the third play here. This is late in the fourth quarter. Lions should have an easy field goal attempt. Would get them within 4. That means at the end of the game, it essentially would have been 27-27 after the touchdown by the Lions and the field goal by the Vikings. So let's take a quick look. Immediately, great pressure by the defensive line. They get through the gap, get their hands up. Kind of a low kick by Jake Bates, and Isaiah Rodgers comes quickly off this edge. And the angle he takes, the ball pops right into his hands. 24 has a good spot for a block here. And really, Isaiah Rodgers should take this to the house. But the holder pushes him out of bounds. Again, great play by special teams. It's been so nice to have great defense and great special teams this year. And Isaiah Rodgers has been a great pickup. So we'll look again here. You can see immediate pressure here by the defensive line. Batty gets good pressure, and Rodriguez puts his shoulder into the long snapper, pushing him back so that him and Williams can get through. These two getting pushed back creates a ton of space. And you can see Rodriguez gets his hands up. It'll hit him first, then hit Williams, which directs the ball over here for Isaiah Rodgers to pick up. Again, pretty low kick, but great pressure. Isaiah Rodgers takes a great angle here, and the ball just falls into his lap, and he's off to the races. This set up a Vikings field goal, gave us a 10-point lead. Just a great special teams play. So the last big play from this weekend that we're going to take a look at is minute 41 left. It's 3rd and 5. Vikings need a first down to close out this game. They're only up 3 points. They need to make this conversion so they can wind the clock down. Immediately off the snap, great blocking here. I mean, J.J. McCarthy has a huge pocket, very clean. Take his time. He sees his target, makes a good throw. Again, very clean pocket. And he's going to throw right here to Naylor, who makes a fantastic catch. I mean, just perfect throw, perfect catch. Get the first down. Vikings kneel, end the game. Take a look at this again. Just back shoulder throw where only Naylor can get it. He makes the catch. Game over. So now that we've talked about the game and seen some of the big plays, what are some of the key takeaways from this weekend? First thing that comes to my mind is this offensive line looks great. It looks how we expected it to look when we signed, those big free agents. We drafted Donovan Jackson. And now that the line is starting to finally get healthy, it's exactly what we expect to see from them. We don't have Ryan Kelly back. He's still out with that concussion, but Blake Brandel stepped up. I mean, you can see here from the PFFF grades. Number 1 in pass blocking, number 2 in run blocking. So just great to see offensive line really shut down Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, he got pressure. There was a play where he got close enough to kick McCarthy that ended up in a penalty. He did have 1 sack, but it wasn't really his sack in my mind. I mean, somebody else hit McCarthy. McCarthy was tumbling to the ground, and Aiden touched him last. So great offensive line work this weekend. Great to see. Hopefully it will continue up, and hopefully we can get Ryan Kelly back as well. The other big takeaway from this weekend, and I'm sure a lot of Vikings fans feel this way, is having J.J. McCarthy back. It was so nice. He looks like our franchise QB. He's already won 2 division games this year for us. He's basically a rookie. So that was great to see. His stats didn't jump off the page. As you can see, he was 14 for 25 for 143 yards. He had 2 touchdown passes, and he had an interception. The interception wasn't really on him. I mean, it was a little bit behind the receiver. It's kind of a 50-50 ball. Both the receiver and the defender had their hands on it, and the refs gave it to the defender when it should have gone to the receiver because tie goes to the runner. But Either way, it's great to see him back in action. Made some great plays. He still has a little bit of room to grow. You can see up here, he did take 5 sacks, and a couple of those were big sacks where he tried to scramble away and ended up losing more yards. Um, but overall, his decision making was very good. He completed that clutch third down conversion to end the game with a great pass, 2 great passing touchdowns, and he also had a rushing touchdown. So if he can learn to not take big sacks, keep fine tuning his passing skills and decision making, I see a lot of hope for the future. I think he'll be a great quarterback for the Vikings. So the other big takeaway from this weekend was our defense looked amazing. Um, we shut down the run game early. They could never really get it going. Gibbs ended with only 25 yards rushing, Montgomery with 40. Um, the Lions have a very dynamic and explosive offense that kind of relies on that run game. Once they get the run going, then they use that play action to their advantage, and that's what helps them start to blow teams out, like they did with the Bears this year. Because of they couldn't get this going, we could kind of pin our ears back and create a ton of pressure. This week Eric Wilson looked great. I think he had 2 sacks. Our defense overall had 5 sacks. Um, Harrison Smith had a fumble recovery, and he also almost had a pick six on a screen pass that was dropped. We would have won by more than 10 points if offensive pass interference was called at the end of the game. Jamison Williams pushed off of Isaiah Rodgers, created separation, caught the ball, scored a touchdown, made it a 3-point game. If the league had a very stout position on the catch rule, we would have had 3 big catches that would have helped extend that 10-point game. But they didn't call it a catch, ended up punting it. Lions got the ball. But Gink was back. He looked amazing. Blake Cashman, again, I already said it before. He was back healthy. It was great to see. He created a lot of pressure. He had 15 tackles, which led the team. He had a tackle for loss. Gink had a tackle for loss and a QB hit and created a ton of pressure. So, Flores really drew up a great game. Our defense looks like it's starting to hit its stride. Isaiah Rodgers has been great, all season. So that's not a surprise. So really good defense this week. And then kind of looped in with that, our special teams has been great so far. Reichard really hasn't missed a kick this year, knock on wood. We all know how Vikings kickers are, but he's been amazing since we drafted him. Miles Price has been awesome. He had the 61-yard return, and then later in the game, he actually had a return for a touchdown that got called back because of a stupid penalty, a holding that didn't really need to happen. He had the hole. And our punts have been great. We had, I think, 4 punts this weekend, and 2 of them were inside the 20. So, great special teams, great defense, really helping our offense, get going because we get good field position, we get stop after stop. So, big takeaway this weekend. Hope it continues, and we'll be on the course for the playoff if that's the case. So now let's get into Vikings Players of the Weeks segment. We discuss an offensive player of the week, defensive player of the week, and an unsung Viking of the week. So maybe special teams or somebody that you wouldn't expect to step up that really did. So the offensive player of the week, we chose J.J. McCarthy. Again, passing numbers don't jump off the page, but he was a great facilitator. His first game back since week 2. 143 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 12 yards rushing for a touchdown. He led the team to the second division win this year, which is big. We're undefeated within the division. And he had that clutch third down conversion to seal the game. So J.J. McCarthy is your offensive player of the week. So now we'll talk about defensive player of the week. We've already seen a clip of it. You've heard me talk about him. Blake Cashman, easily defensive player of the week. Led the team in tackles with 14. He had 6 solo tackles. He had 1 tackle for loss. Created a lot of pressure. Um, Again, we saw the clip. Clutch force fumble down near the goal line. They could have gotten first down. Punches the ball out. Not only do we get a turnover, but we get a turnover inside the 40 that leads to points. And then a 90.8 PFF grade. So honestly, outstanding performance. Blake Cashman is your defensive player of the week. Now your unsung Viking of the week. So this goes to somebody who, maybe didn't step out like other players. JJ McCarthy is the leader of the team, so he's your offensive player of the week. This is somebody who is usually under the radar that made a big impact. So this week it's Miles Price. He had only 1 punt return really for 7 yards, but he had 5 kickoff returns for 164 yards, including a long of 61 on the first drive that set up that touchdown. He gave us short field multiple times. He also had a return touchdown called back for a penalty, but that would have been his first touchdown of the season. He had a 90.3 PFF grade as a returner, and he is actually this season the number 12 returner in the league. And I believe last week he was PFF's number 1 returner. So he had a great week, set up a lot of points for us. Great to have good special teams, a good, reliable returner. It's good to see him get time on the field. So he is the unsung Viking of the week. So let's talk about some of the injury updates and news getting ready for this Ravens game this weekend. Some of the big injury news here. Christian Darrisaw didn't practice, but should be playing this weekend. CJ Ham was limited all week, but I'm hearing he's going to play, which will be a huge morale boost to the team. He's such a leader in that locker room. Theo Jackson and Aaron Jones were both limited this week. They're questionable to play this weekend. Aaron Jones, I think, is more likely to play, but we'll have to see. It would be a big boost to have him back. Jordan Mason's been great, but you really need that 1-2 punch on this Vikings team. They complement each other so well. It would also be nice to start to see Cam Akers get a little bit more reps. He had that passing touchdown. He's versatile, he's dynamic, and he's dangerous. So, a third back isn't always bad, but we'd still like to get Aaron Jones back this weekend. Jeff Okudah and Josh Oliver are out this week, so they won't be playing. But other than that, we should have a full team for this Ravens game. 2 people out, 2 people questionable. The Ravens, I believe, don't have anybody out this week, so it will be a pretty good matchup. The best players against the best players this weekend. So, good to see. Also, news from last week. The Vikings O-line played 100% of the snaps in that game. We didn't have anybody get injured. Take a snap or 2 off before they run back in. They played 100% of the snaps. So, that's not something we're used to seeing. Usually somebody gets hurt. So it was very nice to see the O-line stay healthy, and hopefully that's the case for the rest of the season. We really need them. We spent a lot of money this offseason into the O-line. So it's good to see them healthy. Hopefully they can stay healthy and, kind of drive us into the postseason. The other kind of news that I saw this week was, Dallas Turner only played 15 snaps last week. I'd like to see him get more this week. I know it's hard with Van Ginkel coming back. Kind of rotate him into that line because Gink is, obviously the starter. But I'm hoping this week, we can get a good mix and even throw him in there when Gink's out on the field. But start to get Dallas Turner a little bit more experience, a little bit more reps, and see his impact on the game this week. So now we'll get into, is it an overreaction or is it not an overreaction? And the first question is Vikings can make the playoffs and even farther this year. I don't think this is an overreaction. We're a game and a half ish out of first place in the division. Right now, we're sitting in the 10th spot in the NFC. Um, we do have, a tough schedule ahead, but it is one of the easier schedules in the NFC North. Um, we're only a game back from the wild card position, so I think it's very plausible that we could make the wild card, if not win the division, and maybe go farther. So it is not an overreaction in my mind. So the second overreaction we're going to look at is Dallas Turner is a bust. I think that's a bit of an overreaction. He's only in his second year. He was a first round pick, and he hasn't truly lived up to, being the number 17 pick overall. But we do have great edge rushers. Jonathan Grenard and Van Ginkel have been amazing. So it's hard for him to get on the field. Now, while Gink was out with injury, he stepped up. He made some great plays. He still has room to grow. But now that Gink is back, I mean, he played 15 snaps against the Lions. So not a ton. I would like to see him get more playing time. I think he still has room to grow, but only time will tell. So the Vikings didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. So should they have made moves? Should they have traded for a cornerback, or should they have traded for Kirko Chains? I think this is an overreaction. It's hard to say what we need when we've been injured all year. McCarthy's only started 2 games. We Wentz did hit IR, so I mean, Kirko would have been nice as a backup quarterback. I know he had mentioned that he wouldn't be opposed to backing up McCarthy because he does like Minnesota. I just don't think what we would have had to give up for Kirk would have been worth it. If he gets cut and then comes as a backup quarterback, I think we should take him. But I also think Max isn't a bad option at backup. I would like to see him get a shot if, late in games when we're blowing teams out, start getting him some reps so we have another good backup quarterback. So I don't think it's an overreaction to not want to trade. I just don't think we needed a quarterback. And then our defense looked really good this week. So, you're kind of riding the high of, we don't really need pieces. And I know there's a couple good free agents still out there. I think Gilmore is still a free agent. And then Asante Samuel is still available. So he's an option that we could get basically for free, right? I mean, we'd pay him a salary, but we're not giving up any assets to trade for him. Now, this is all pending what the team doctors this week see as they're evaluating Samuel, but I do think we could shore up a little bit of depth on our defense, but I am kind of glad we didn't give up a ton of assets to go out and get something. Our defense looked really good this week, and we can keep building on that. So now we're going to take a look ahead to this weekend's game. We got a big game coming up against the Ravens, and we play them at 1 p.m. Eastern. I believe it's on Fox. This will be a really telling game, right? The Ravens are extremely healthy. I think they had 0 people on their injury report this week. We're still getting healthy. If our defense can do what they did last week, that'll be a big plus. Because the Ravens have one of the most explosive offenses and run games in the league. We don't always do the best with mobile quarterbacks, and since Lamar Jackson's back healthy, we really need to have a spy on him at all times. We need to contain the edge, but that's hard to do when they have a running back like Derrick Henry. So I think the key to this week will really be stopping the run game and also wrapping up and making these tackles. Lamar's elusive, and Derrick is strong. So if we don't wrap up either of them, they can break a 2 yard run into 60 yards. So that's just something we need to look out for. The other strength of the Ravens is Zay Flowers. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Jordan Addison. He can kind of run all over the field. He's hard to cover. He can play in the slot. He can play the X. They like to put him in motion. He's quick, he's fast, and he runs good routes. So we'll have to cover him because, he may not be putting up 200 yards a game or, top receiver numbers, but he makes a lot of good clutch plays on third down when the Ravens need some momentum. He's always there. So we really need to try and shut him down this week. Some of the weaknesses of the Ravens are their defense has not been great this year. I was really looking forward to Justin Jefferson versus Jair, but they traded Jair this week, so I'm a little sad. We'll miss that. And then if our Vikings defense can do what it did last week versus this Ravens run game, I think we're in for a really good game. Now, I do think it will be a good game. I think it will be close. I think we'll be able to shut down the run game early. As always with the Ravens, I think the third and fourth quarter, their run game will open up a bit, which might hurt us. But I think we'll be, around a tie game for most of the game. I think it's going to be another close heart attack game, as we Viking fans are used to. I think it will be tied going into the fourth, and I think what's actually going to win it is going to be Will the Thrill putting the field goal through the uprights. Vikings win 24-21. It's a little hopeful, but I also think it's very doable. I think our defense has been good enough, and I think the Ravens defense has been not as tough as some of the other defenses we've faced this year. I think that will open things up for McCarthy to move the ball a little bit. I think we can get our run game established with Mason and Aaron Jones hopefully playing. And I think that will give us a little bit of the edge. And that's why I think it'll be 24-21. So let's take a look around the NFC North and the rest of the NFL and see how the Vikings are, faring. We know how the Lions did. Took the L against the Vikings. Vikings got the dub. They're a game back now from the Lions, and a good place to be. The Bears beat the Bengals. However, they did have about a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. Bengals came back, scoring 2 touchdowns, actually took the lead 42-41, and it took a last-second touchdown by the Bears to actually win that game. So I think the Bears scored with 15 seconds left or something like that to take that lead. So Bengals gave them a run for their money, even with that Bengals bad defense. So Bears look a little better than they played. They probably should have a couple more losses this year. And then the Packers lost. So, always a big plus for us Vikings fans. I think their 2 losses this year are to the Browns and the Panthers, and their ties to the Cowboys. So it seems like they can't beat those bad teams. And I don't think they've really blown too many teams out this year. So, it's a lot. There are a lot of people's pick to be, the Super Bowl favorites, but they haven't really wowed me this year. Micah Parsons, hasn't been the game wrecker on that defense. The defense is good, but he hasn't really stepped out to me. So we'll play them in a couple weeks, and maybe my mind will be changed. But I think right now in the NFC North, we're looking good. So you can see the standings here. Packers at the top, 5-2-1. Lions and Bears are at 5-3. Vikings are 4-4. So, again, we're about a game and a half back. It's kind of weird with that tie in there, but we're looking good. And then you can see the NFC. I think we're in the 10th position. So right behind the Bears, the Panthers. Um, both of them haven't had their bye, so we're a half a game behind. And then you got the Lions sitting there in the 7th seed. So um, we just beat them. We have the head-to-head winner over them. Only a game back. We're looking good. So, we're not quite in that playoff picture, but we're in a good position. What does that mean for our playoff chances? You can see here, we're at the bottom of the screen here. We only have a 13% chance to make the playoffs, but I believe it was a 1% chance last week. So, that JJ McCarthy coming back into the starting lineup and getting us that win, that really boosted our odds. 13%. If we can get a win this weekend and maybe get a loss from the Bears or the Lions, or the Packers, we really jump into a good spot for making the playoffs. And then, from there, it doesn't give us good chances to make the Super Bowl right now. But if we can stay healthy, we can keep playing like we did last week. We can beat good teams like we did last week. I mean, the Lions are a good team. You can see they have a 36% chance to win the division. And 71 to make the playoffs. So, this predictor thinks they're a playoff team. We can beat good playoff teams. We'll be in a good spot. Also, we have the 16th toughest schedule remaining. So you can see our toughest games coming up. We play the Packers twice, always be tough. We play the Lions once, again, be tough. We play the Seahawks, who have been on a roll. It's good to see Sam Darnold doing well, but that will be a tough game. And then it throws the Bears on the easiest side of the schedule, but it's a division game, so it will be tough. So we really have 4.5, 5 games remaining that will be tough out of our 9. And then we play the Giants, who, have lost 2 of their big playmakers. We play the Commanders. I don't know what the status on Jaden Daniels will be by then. And we play the Cowboys, whose defense isn't very good. So you can see here the Bears have the 3rd toughest, Packers have the 4th toughest, and then the Lions are around 9. So we do have the easiest strength of schedule remaining, which is a good sign for us. We're starting to trend upwards. We're getting wins, and the schedule's starting to get easier. So, and the other thing to note here, we play the Lions at home, we play the Bears at home, and we play the Packers at home still. I believe our first game against the Packers is at Green Bay. So that means our 3 final division games, which we're already 2-0, will be at home, which is a big plus. We don't have to go into enemy territory to end the season. So, good trajectory for the Vikings. I think we have a good shot at making the playoffs. Like I said, I think right now we're in the 10th slot. In the NFC, we have a pretty good remaining schedule. If we can get a win this weekend against the Ravens, and then we can, win at least 2 more division games, we'll be in a good spot. As always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the review this week and the preview for the upcoming week. We do this every week, so next week, we'll be doing this same kind of thing. Review of the Ravens game, kind of any takeaways, injury news, where we're at in the NFC North, and then the preview for the upcoming Bears game. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.